Yeah.
And we prayed that night, and I said, if you're not worried about who's right and who's wrong, then let's pray for the Father to show us the truth. And he looked at me, my husband, and he was like, okay, fine.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jody Odell, and this is Walk Like a Hebrew. Walk Like a Hebrew is a place for believers, children of God, and followers of Jesus Christ, also known as Yeshua, to share their stories, testimonies of Yahweh's grace, and guidance out of shallow faith and into true relationship with our Creator. One common thread in these accounts is the desire for God's truth, no matter where that truth leads. What might happen if you sincerely ask God to show you His truth, the truth? My guests in episode 35 are David and Niki Rodriguez of Quantico, Virginia. Their coming-to-Torah story is wonderful, but the real meat here lies in Niki's years-long battle with stage 4 breast cancer and all the ways it has changed her and affected her faith. This episode is longer than usual because I just couldn't bear to leave out even the smallest part of this emotional, inspiring story.
Welcome to Walk Like a Hebrew. I am here today with Niki and David Rodriguez of Quantico, Virginia. And you may know Niki from the Front Porch Fellowship Facebook group with Christy Jordan. And if you don't, you're about to hear a really, really incredible story. Welcome, Niki and David. How are you guys today?
Hello, we are great.
We're good. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Good. Thank you for coming on. Just real quick, can you introduce yourself and then you can start telling us your story?
Well, I'm David, married to Nicole, currently in the active duty Marine Corps, Chief Warrant Officer. Yes, been in 16 years. Been married to Nicole for 12, for wonderful years.
I'm Niki, Nicole. My husband calls me Nicole, but everyone else calls me Niki. Yep, we've been married for almost 13 years now. I'm a Marine Corps wife, and I'm living with stage 4 breast cancer, fighting stage 4 breast cancer right now, which I've been battling for the last 2 years.
Wow, that must be rough.
It's rough, but Yahweh's good.
Isn't he, though? Do you guys have kids?
We do. We have one son. He's 28 years old. He lives in New York. He just got married in October to a beautiful girl, beautiful spiritually and beautiful physically. She's just wonderful. We just absolutely adore her. Yeah.
What a blessing. What a blessing.
Yeah.
Well, so let's start by just tell me, start at the beginning. What was your faith background, and then how did you come into the walk of faith that you're in now? Okay,
so we were both what you would call, I guess, mainstream Christians, basically our whole lives, I would say. We didn't necessarily go to like a denominational church or consistently or anything like that.
Yeah, so I grew up also non-denominational since I could remember. Christian faith was very strong in my growing up. And so when I met Nicole, we both prayed for each other.
Oh, yeah.
In our own time. I thought I was never going to get married. And so I prayed to God to present me with a woman that was going to be the one that he wanted. And I think a few months later, I met Nicole.
Yeah.
Once I joined the Marine Corps, I kind of drifted away from my faith. I just didn't have that fellowship anymore. But I never stopped believing and never did anything like that. But once I got married to Nicole, we kind of re-engaged that within ourselves, reading the Bible, and we thought we had it all figured out. We thought we had a good understanding of what the Bible said, just like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so we were doing that, kind of on our own for quite some time. I want to say 9 years.
Yeah, 9 years.
Yeah. Our son didn't live with us while I was in the Marine Corps. And so he was one of the ones that got us into Torah, but I'm going to let my wife tell you about that story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a cousin, and my cousin found out about Torah, that, the law is not done away with, let's say. And he presented it to us. And he had presented it to our son, too. Our son was actually living at his house with his family at the time, going to college. And they were very close, like brothers. So our son knew about this, too. And we heard it, and we heard what he had to say, and right away we were, but Paul. And proceeded to write 5-page, I don't know, a few page long email to them disputing everything that they were saying based on Paul. That was it. We let it go at that point. And what happened was we agreed to kind of disagree. My cousin kind of went out of the picture, and then it was just my son, you know, following this. And my son's now wife, who was his girlfriend and fiance at the time, she was with us. It was like the three of us against him. Okay. So we would be like thinking he was nuts. You know, we would really, I mean, I'm just being frank here. We would actually talk about him and be like, you know, he doesn't know. He's wrong. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know enough about the word. We were saying we knew more, you know, and like he didn't know. And so it was kind of like the three of us against him. But I will say that we always respected what he was doing. So, for example, when I first got diagnosed with my breast cancer with stage 4, we actually moved in with them for a couple of months when the Marine Corps was moving us. Like on Shabbat, we knew not to buy anything. We wouldn't buy things and bring it to the house. We wouldn't eat pork or eat anything unclean in his house. We had a lot of respect. We never wanted that to be a division between us. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so, I don't know, do you want me to tell you how we finally came to see the different things?
Keep going. Don't stop now. I'm on the edge of my seat.
So we got to a point where we wouldn't even talk about it at all because we just knew that we disagreed and we didn't want to fight. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So one day though, my son got me on the phone and my husband was in the garage working, and I'll never forget. So I'm on the phone with my son and his then fiance. And now in between this, she had called us a couple of times and said to us, you know, listen guys, I think that he might be onto something here. And we're like, no, you're just falling for it. You know, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like and she's like, but I'm telling you, he's showing me these things and I'm looking them up for myself. And what he's saying is actually right. Like I'm seeing these things. And we were like, oh no, he's getting to you. You know? I'm so sorry to laugh. It's so bad. But so she was like, all right. If you guys say so, you know, she figured we knew more than her. Okay. Like biblically. So she was like, all right, I guess so, you know. And, so then one day my son gets me on the phone and something came up and he said to me, because something came up about the law. And I said, well, I believe in the moral laws. I said, I believe in the moral law. And he said, the moral law. I said, yeah, I just don't believe in the ceremonial law. That we have to do and keep. And he said, Mom, I want you to do something for me. I want you to hang up the phone and I want you to go look in your Bible and I want you to tell me where you find the words moral and ceremonial law and then call me back, right? So I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find that. And he's like, no, just check, right? So I hang up with him and I go to my husband and now I'm like in the garage and I'm like, where is this? Because I can't find it. And I have to prove him wrong, you know, like, and my husband's like, no, what were you saying? You were like,
there isn't,
right? He's like,
it's not there.
He's like, it's not there, but we just know that those are the moral laws. We just know this. And I'm looking at my husband, I'm like, that's not gonna cut it, babe. I'm like, he has proof and we don't. Like, I need to back this up. And I could see my husband, he's getting annoyed now. He's getting like, not angry. My husband's he's very humble and he doesn't anger easy, but I could see him getting very like frustrated and annoyed because he knew that we couldn't disprove him.
I was getting worried. I was losing her.
Yes.
You know, I was like, okay, she's crossing into that side now.
Right. So it's getting better. So I call my son back and I'm like, well, I can't find that, but you know, those are the moral laws. So he goes, okay, Ma, I'll let it go. He goes, well, let me ask you this. He goes, so you're saying you believe in the 10 Commandments? And I'm like, yeah, of course I believe in the 10 Commandments. And he's like, but you don't. You believe in 9 Commandments. And I'm like, what? No, I don't. I believe in all the 10 Commandments. I murder, don't steal, you know, like I'm naming these things. And he's like, Mom, you don't believe in the Sabbath. You don't keep the Sabbath on the 7th day. And I said, oh, Frankie, God just wanted us to keep the Sabbath. It doesn't matter if it's the 7th day. We do it on Sunday. It's the Lord's. You hear my husband laughing? Yeah. I'm like, it's the Lord's day. And that's what we called it. So now my husband is listening in on this and now he's getting even more like, and my son's like, no, Mom, the commandment doesn't say that, Mom. He's like, you need to read the commandment. It can't be any day of the week. That's not what, you know, God says about it. I'm like, I don't know, you know, so we wind up getting off the phone. Okay. Now, for 2 years, I need to mention this. This is very important.
Okay.
For 2 years, When I tell you almost 5 times a week, we would pray together, and we were praying for over 2 years for the Father to show our son the truth. Okay? You need to know this. This is very important.
Okay.
I literally say those words, Father, please show our son the truth and show him the truth. Show him the truth. But for 2 years straight. So that night, my husband comes to me and he's like, tell her what you said.
Yeah. Are you believing him now? Are you going to be following this now? And she's like, well, no, but I don't know what she said, but I knew that she was starting to believe him, and she was looking into this stuff, right? And this is where I come in now, because our son also, he was,
No. First we prayed that night. You were angry.
Yeah.
And we prayed that night and I said, if you're not worried about who's right and who's wrong, then let's pray for the Father to show us the truth. And he looked at me, my husband, and he was like, okay, fine. And we prayed, Father, show us the truth. And then within that week, tell her what he did when he sent me.
So he sends me, it's like, I want you to watch these videos by Zach Bauer, from MTOI, right? Short videos that I want you to watch them. And I was like, okay.
Galatians and Liberty video.
And so I started watching them, but my mindset, my state of mind was different. And so I was listening to those things just to listen to them, but I wasn't really paying attention. And I didn't finish it, all the videos, because I was like, Zach's wrong. And so my son was expecting a feedback, and I didn't give that to him. I ignored it. I didn't talk to him about it. One day he calls me and he tells me, you know, I'm pretty upset. I'm pretty hurt that I sent this and I was expecting to talk to you and you didn't say anything about this. And I felt really bad because I could tell that I really hurt him. And so I said, Frankie, you're right. I'm really sorry. I'm going to listen to the videos now. There was one video that Zach was talking about what the penalty of the law meant, right? Well, you could say it better.
He was saying that anytime you see what looks like Paul teaching against the law, it's one of two things. He's either teaching against the traditions that they were following of man's law or the punishment that comes when we break God's law.
Right. And so that was the beginning of it all, right? So I saw that video and I was like, that makes sense. I cannot argue against that. So the following day, I was still torn inside. It was eating me inside this because now I was torn.
Yeah.
And so next morning I get up to work and I'm driving and I just pray to the Father. I say, Father, if this is the truth, if this is where you want us to go, then I want peace and I want a clear leading. I don't like feeling this way. I was torn inside, and obviously I felt uneasiness because I was being exposed. So I prayed, and I think right after that, you know, I came back home and we continued to look into this. I said, you know what? There's something here.
Yeah.
And we both did. I said, there's something here. We got to look into this.
And really became obsessed.
And that was the beginning of it, right? And so.
Did you say you became obsessed?
Yeah, we became obsessed. I mean, I was like 12 hours a day just watching videos and researching.
The hunger and the thirst.
Yes, the hunger. Yeah, and you know what else too? I want to say this. I didn't say it earlier, but when my son first came into Torah, he was still himself. He didn't change that much, but by the second year, when he contacted me, when we had that conversation on the phone that day, by that point, my son had been in Torah over 2-3 years, and he was different. What happened was we were starting to see this. I'll call him a kid, but you know he was a man. But
yeah. His
personality and everything about him was different. He was not living a worldly life anymore. He completely put God first. He was very calm. He was never nasty when talking about it or argumentative. He always seemed so beautiful, like you could just see this change in him. And I remember saying to my husband that night, the night that we prayed for God to show us the truth, finally that night, I said to my husband, because he said, are you believing him? And I remember that I said to you, I said, babe, are you going to try and tell me that whatever Frankie's believing, it's got to be something good or positive, because look at the change in him. He's like a different person. He's like this nice, calm, patient, loving person. Like, it's just weird. And I said, are you going to try to deny that? You know? And he was like, I mean, cause like my family's from New York, we're Italian, we're loud, you know, like, and he just became like this, I can't explain it. More humbled. I don't know how to explain it, but my husband looked at me right then and he was like, you're right. I cannot deny that. That is the truth. He's definitely different in a positive way. And just everything in his life changed. I mean, everything. So the effects were visibly noticeable. So that was one of the things too, coupled with everything that we started to see. We were literally seeing a physical and spiritual change in him. So it drew us even more. You know what I'm saying? It made us say, well, what's going on there? You know, he's on to something, you know?
And so now we didn't know where to begin, right? Because now we both had a lot of unlearning to do.
Yeah, unlearning. Yes. Oh my goodness.
And then we came into 119, and so we subscribed to the, what was it? The 101, the Hebrew 101, what's it called?
Hebrew
Roots 101?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we did that.
So we
did that
subscribed and we started that, and that was a good, starting point for us to start learning and unlearning a lot of things.
I will say though that in the beginning when Frankie sent us, like, you know, different pastors speak differently to different people. Yeah. You know, some people like the way one person talks. I will say that for me, Zach was the perfect breakthrough for me. He, you know, just the way he teaches MTOI, really caught me. My husband's a different personality than me, and he really latched on and loved like 119's method in the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we began with that, and a few weeks later we had to go to New York and we stayed with our son. Now, mind you, by then our daughter-in-law was still not 100%.
Yeah.
And so I remember I think it was Shabbat dinner.
Because her family is not in.
Right.
It's very difficult for her.
And so I had to be like, hey, Frankie, you know what? Because he was expecting for me to talk about this. And so I think he was expecting me to kind of argue against it.
Uh-huh.
And I told Nico, listen, don't say anything. And so we kind of want to surprise him. So in dinner, I was like, Frankie, so.
Oh yeah, like surprise him because he didn't know that we were believing this.
Right.
Now,
so listen, right. You're 100% right. We're all in, you know, and you could see the change in
the joy in his face. He was like.
And then our daughter-in-law just followed suit. And I said, listen, you need to subscribe to Hebrew Roots 101 and do this. And so they did it together with her. And that was also a good beginning for her to get into this.
Even though she kind of was in before us, she was kind of seeing that he was right, you know.
Yeah.
But I will say this, it was a blessing for us. We had it easier than some people that learn about Torah or come to the whole word, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it coming to the whole word. I call it coming to Torah, but we had it easier because we knew what it was going to look like because we had been watching him walk it out for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, some people don't have that. And then they have family, you know, sees them doing this. And I mean, I've heard horrible, horrible stories. I really have. And I'm so thankful that we didn't have to go through that. You know, like we knew what to expect. In other words, we knew that on Shabbat we weren't going to be shopping. We knew that we weren't going to be all the things that you don't do. I don't want to offend anyone, but you know, we knew what it was going to look like, so to speak. So it was a much easier transition, I would say, for us. And my husband didn't mention this, but my husband, the church that he grew up in, they never celebrated the Christian holidays. They knew about the origins of those holidays. Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, all those things. So that wasn't a big change for him at all. And not for me either, because he kind of told me about that when we met. Although my son and my family celebrated all that, so I was still kind of doing it. But I knew the backgrounds of those things. So I will say that transition that's really, 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 really sometimes the hardest thing for people in this whole walk wasn't that hard for us because we already knew about that. So we kind of had a little, you know, cheat sheet, I guess, by watching our son, you know, walk it out. So.
Yeah.
Wow,
but what about, right, to come to Torah through your child, right? I mean, like, I couldn't have handpicked it a better way. It's such a blessing. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I have been trying to get my mom for years and years, and she's very, but Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her one day, I said, Mom, this is not the church of Paul. And that was the last time we ever spoke about our faith. She was so offended that I would even hint that she's following Paul over Yeshua. But she does. I mean, when you boil it down to the bare bones, that's really what it is.
It is. Yeah. And we didn't have the thing like most people where they had to go against their whole family because, again, we only have our son. My mom actually is 82. She lives with our son and his wife, and she just does all of this. Like, my mother was never a religious person in any way. So, like, Shabbat, she just follows along with everything, so she's easy. But it's my husband's family. My husband's father is an elder in their church. And he is literally, I mean, my husband wrote him, I think, a 9-page document about, it said the 10 commandments and 10 is crossed out and it says 9. Like, we tried to show him the perspective from just Shabbat alone. And he came to visit us a few months later. And when I tell you, this man is the most peaceful, beautiful, lives his life for God. I can't even tell you how much he lives his life for God, but all he was talking about was Paul. I mean, they just can't let go of Paul. That was probably the hardest thing for us. But other than that, we really don't have any other family that we've had to, have interactions with or negative things. So we're kind of blessed in that way. Because I've seen, and I know you have, there's no doubt, families literally divided and breaking up. And I mean, literally people getting cruel. Like, sometimes I look at people and I'm like, they're calling themselves even a quote Christian. I mean, like, just treating people cruel because they don't believe what they believe, like it's almost scary. It's almost frightening.
Well, I know of a few women who have been divorced because their husbands just cannot wrap their minds around it.
Traditions run deep, yes. So that's how we came into Torah. And I will say that we love it. Our life has completely changed. But I'll let you ask us some stuff because I've been rambling on. So
no, that's the rambling is where the best stuff comes out.
Well, you might think that, but my husband, I get the evil eye.
Oh, no, it's great. I think I do want to ask you, I'd like to ask about how your cancer has affected your faith.
Okay, so before we came into Torah, about a year before we came into Torah, maybe 2 years, I actually read this book called Trusting God. It's a very famous book. It's a great book, actually. And it's all about the sovereignty of God, right? How God's sovereign. And I remember one day, I had stage 4 cancer at this time, but I didn't know it, okay? I knew it physically, like I had problems, but I wasn't officially diagnosed. And I'm reading this book, and I remember saying to my husband one day, I said, I don't get it. I said, if God's sovereign, then why do we even need to pray, right? Why do we need to pray? And my husband said, because he's merciful. And my husband used the story of how Abraham, you know that story. It says 50 in the city, will you save the city? Yes, it says 40. And God kept saying yes. And then he got all the way down to like 10 people or whatever, right? So like God can change his mind, his plan for us. He can change his plan for us. Why? Because he's merciful. He wants us to pray, right? So during that whole time, when I read that book and I was figuring that out, I had been praying for about a year to the Father for him to show me how to enjoy him and how to love him above everyone and everything. Because I knew that I was not putting him first. And I knew that I didn't love him. I'm sorry. I knew that I didn't love him more than my husband because I waited my whole life for my husband and I didn't know how to do that, I guess. You know what I mean? So, I got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and, I still wasn't in Torah and I still wasn't where I wanted to be spiritually. And it wasn't until we came to Torah, I have to be honest, it just changed everything for us. I found the Father. I found how awesome he is and how he used the cancer to gain me and for me to gain more of him and for me to see him through that it just, I don't know how to.
So it was interesting because we were very hopeful that we were going to find a treatment that was going to work.
Yeah, not cure me. That was just
going to,
prolong my life for a lot of years.
But she kept failing treatment.
Every treatment.
After treatment, after treatment. And so, reality started to set in for me.
Yeah.
And she realized, I am against time here. And something within her, I remember her telling me, I want to be able to be transformed. I want to have more time so I could just be transformed into the image of Yeshua. And so she went on overdrive with just pursuing the Father and the Word, because all she wanted to do was
look like Yeshua.
When the time came, that the Father would say, well done, good and faithful servant. I think that drove things home for her.
Yeah.
For us that don't have a terminal illness, we think we have the rest of our lives to change. Nicole understands that her time is shorter. And so she's trying to kind of do this 24/7 because she understands the need. And I think that's one aspect of it.
Yeah. Because I want to be pleasing to the Father.
But that desire in turn turned into a sweet experience because now she was open to the Father and His Word. And we have seen how the Father has blessed us with her and meeting people and the fellowship, especially when we went to the
Isaiah 46:10
conference and being able to meet a lot of these people.
And let me say too, let me just interject here. So when we first came to Torah and found Zach, which many of your listeners might know, his wife Jamie died from cancer. But when we found him, we didn't even know that he had a wife and that she died or anything. And within like a month of watching him, I found out, oh, this guy's married. Oh, but wait, she died. Oh, wait, she died of cancer. And Jamie wrote a blog post right before she died. Anyone that has cancer, any of your listeners, please read the blog post, because as a couple, every single word in that blog post was as though I wrote it with my own mouth. I'm not even kidding you. Everything that we have gone through as a couple with this disease and relations to Torah and relations to God and relation to everyone around you, she literally, we both cried when we read it. It was so validating, I can't even say, but there was two things in there that Jamie said that they changed my walk. Really, it was her blog post that really did it into overdrive, because she said, one, that she wanted to hear those words, good and faithful servant, and about being still and letting things be well with your soul. And I remember saying to my husband, how do you do that? How am I going to ever feel? How am I going to be still? How am I going to, things are going to be well with my soul? How can I find joy? I'm dying, I'm all the things you think about when you're going to die, right? So, but I did. I just started praying to Yahweh. I just prayed all the time, just all I want is more time, not for me, not for my marriage, not to one day see my grandkids, not to see my husband retire. That was my biggest goal when I first got diagnosed, was that I wanted to live long enough to see my husband retire, because we've been in the Marine Corps. It's been our life and we love it. And, I started seeing the realization that was probably not going to happen for me, because I'm just flowing through the treatments too fast. And my focus then became, I just want to be transformed. I need more time. I'm not there yet. I'm not going to hear those words. And I want to hear those words. Why do I want to hear those words? Because I want the Father to see that I'm living my life because I just want to be pleasing to Him. There's nothing else I want. Every day when I get up, that's my goal every day. I just want to do everything I can to be so pleasing in His eyes. I wanted someone to see the deposit of Him in me. And that's what this cancer did. It put the deposit so strong in me of the Father that people are now seeing it. I'm so sorry, I'm crying.
I am too. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Just to have people say things to me, like in Christy's group, that they think that I'm a blessing to them and that I'm shining a ray of light, and that, that's the other thing too, is that I know that this is for my good and His glory. And I never knew the depth of that statement until having this disease and loving the Father, because it is for my good. I have changed and transforming so much. It's blessed my life. It's literally blessed my life. Yes, exactly. It has. And you know what? It's glorifying him. Like, I'm actually doing something and it's glorifying him. People think, well, what do you mean? You got cancer. You know, how is it glorifying him? Because people are saying that I look like a light to them. That's him. That's not me. Forget it. I'm horrible. There's no way I could be a light. Like, sometimes people say things and I look at my husband and I go, maybe they're just being nice because they feel bad for me because I got cancer. You know? And he's like, no, babe. He's like, they're saying, you know, look at the things you're saying. Look at some of the prayers you're saying to people and the things you're saying while you're going through this. That's the light. And that's been my goal. That's all I want is just to glorify him, just to glorify him and love him more than I love anyone and anything. And I'm getting there. You know, it's a work every day, but I am definitely getting there. And he's blessed us both so much. I mean, I can't stress to people enough how important it is to know the Torah. Like, for people to say that you're under a law and a curse, I mean, look at my life right now. It's the complete opposite. I love the Lord more now. I love the Father more now than I ever could have. And that only happened after Torah. I mean, yeah, coupled with my disease, but even my husband who grew up, I mean, I don't think he's ever been closer to the Father than you are.
No, everything started to make sense now. You know, all the gaps were filled and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, so hang on. I gotta find a tissue, Niki. Hold on.
Having cancer and going through this it's been a blessing. I know that sounds crazy. People think I'm crazy when I say that, but it's actually been probably the best blessing in my life because it allowed God to come in and make those changes in me.
Yeah, it created a chain reaction.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Something bad created a need and a desire for her, for both of us. And that in turn made us seek the Father more. Mm-hmm. And that made us really enjoy what we were doing, right? It's like exercising. You know, it's painful at first. You have to do some work, but the more you do it, the more that you see the benefits and how good it is. The same thing happened with our walk in Torah because of this, because of our need, because of this hard time. Let us turn to the Father, and that in turn was a blessing in which we saw the results and made us in turn go to him more and turn to him more, because mm-hmm. that's where we were able to find the refuge and the peace and the blessing even among the calamity. You know, this is not, believe me, I know that she sounds great right now, but it comes in waves with this.
Yeah.
We have we have our good times, and she's got her good times and she's got her bad times, both physically and mentally. It's a roller coaster battle and a disease like that.
And wait, I want to say something that my husband said once that really, I hope everyone can benefit from this. But I remember having a really down day one day, and I was just crying, and I said to him, you know, I want to have faith like Job, like David. You know, I'm crying, like that's not, you know, I shouldn't be crying or whatever. And he said, babe, you don't think Job cried? Job cried. Job wept, you know, but what he didn't do was ever doubt. He always trusted that Yahweh was in control. And no matter what was going to happen, it was okay. But he wept. And I thought about that, and I was like, you know what? It's true, especially now since I've read Job and everything. This was a while ago. But I was like, that's so true. It's not that we can't weep and we can't feel disappointment or sadness, but there's a difference between disappointment and sadness and despair. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the one thing I can honestly say that I'm proud of myself, if I was going to be proud of anything, is that I've never asked Yahweh why. People think that's crazy, but I never have. I never asked, why do I have this? I felt like I always knew. I felt that, you know, he allowed this to be because he needed to transform me. And this is what it took. And I'm good with that. I never asked why, and I never doubt that he's in control. I will tell you that right now. And I'm a control freak. I really am. Having cancer, like there was a family member of mine, my cousin that I told you that originally told us about Torah. Mm-hmm. He once said to me not too long ago that you're trying to control something that you have no control over. And it's very true because you don't, when you're in the camp about it, you can do as much as you can, conventional treatment, unconventional treatment, whatever the person wants to do, but really you don't have any control. And I think that's part of loving Yahweh and showing that you trust him completely is letting go of the control. You know what I mean? Is saying, okay, you take the wheel because you got it, And so I never really asked why. I never did that. And I will say I never not trusted that he was the one in control. But I do have times, yes, where I get down and sad and it is very emotional. It's very emotional. So I will say that Chrissy's group, has been there's no coincidences, Yahweh placed us there for a reason. And Chrissy, I think she would definitely tell you the same thing about us. And I found my tribe. I actually said that to my mom this morning on the phone. I said, it took 52 years and stage 4 cancer, but I found my tribe. I really did. And I'm so blessed. I don't know what I ever did to be so blessed that I did right, but I am. And everyone really is if they just open their heart to him and pray to see the truth. That's what I think everybody needs to do. And I still pray that daily. I still pray, Father, keep showing me the truth, Thank you that you are the one on the throne. Show me the truth of you. Show me the truth every day.
True. The more we are in this world, the more we realize that we don't know anything.
Yeah.
Especially for me. I thought I had a good understanding that, man, has it been a humbling experience, and I'm so grateful. And so I've learned to take everything, and even the things that I just don't agree, I realize that I'm not agreeing with them because I don't understand it yet. And so I've learned not to ever dismiss anything that comes my way. I wait until I could look into it and check it. 9 out of 10 times it's me.
Yeah.
It was not, it was not what was being presented. It was me. I was wrong in my prior learning and indoctrination, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so realizing that it's a lot more simpler than you think, as long as you use the word as the foundation for everything. It just makes more sense.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to ask us about who we kind of follow as far as like teachers at all.
Yeah.
But I would like to just mention a couple that have been dear to us and what we think. We definitely love 119, and we definitely think 119 is awesome. And we, of course, love Zach at MTOI. And Torah class. I can't say enough about Tom Bradford. Tom Bradford's Torah class has been a real blessing to us as well. And then Rabbi Steve Berkson from MTOI we love a lot. A lot of people find him too brash, I guess you'd say, but I'm from New York and he's from New York, so he doesn't really rub me that way. I'm a kind of tell it like it is person, so
yeah.
But he walks out the walk, I will say. I have a very high level of respect for him. And last but not least, someone that we love and we think is amazing, but I would not recommend this person for anyone new to Torah, would be Rico Cortes at Wisdom in Torah. Rico specializes and mostly teaches on temple, and we never realized how important the temple is to literally everything in that Bible, from the garden, which was a temple, to the end, to the Revelation. And if you want temple teaching, which I think everybody needs to get taught on the temple, Rico, Joseph Good, they're your guys for temple specifically. But not for people that are new to Torah, because they would just, obviously be lost in it. But his relation and videos that he teaches on, like, just for example, quick one, temple and Shabbat, how your home is and should be like a temple on Shabbat. He's definitely someone we have a great high level of respect for. But again, I wouldn't recommend him for anyone new to Torah. So those are probably the ones that we watch the most. And I will say one thing. There's something 119 says all the time. I'm going to paraphrase because I can't quote exactly, chemo brain.
Okay.
But I remember they always said something like to the effect of, if you agree with any teacher 100%, that's a problem. You're always going to probably find one or two things that you may not exactly agree on. And we have found that to be so true. So like every teacher that I mentioned to you that we have a high level of respect for and we only watch those few, there are definitely one or two things with each of them that we may not agree with. And that's okay. It doesn't discredit them as a good teaching source. I mean, unless they were breaking a command. You know what I mean? Or teaching against Torah. Like if they were teaching that, you know, you don't have to wear tutus, that would be a big issue for me. I could not watch someone that's saying that, you know, like teaching is a command. So basically, we don't agree necessarily 100% with any teacher, but we find those few to be really, really creditable, and they've really blessed us in a lot of ways. I feel so bad because I didn't mention Christy Jordan. So what I do want to say about Christy, one of the things that Christy and I, we glean a lot from each other. And I used to call myself the thorn in her side. She laughs because she doesn't look at it that way, but I was challenging to her on a lot of issues in the beginning. And the one thing that I will say that I've learned from her, really I have, and it's been such a blessing, is that to kind of love people where they're at, you know, like I had to find the line, I think, between, you know, when you find out about Torah, I'm sure you know, you're very zealous and you want everybody to do it. I know people use that term Torah terrorist, but that's a little bit. I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, oh my gosh, I know this thing and you need to know it because it's so great. Okay. Like that's how I look at it. But Christy, you know, I learned from her that love people where they're at, and when they see what you're doing, they're going to want to do that. If it's right and it's from the Father, they're going to want to do it and they're going to see it. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So even if you might be walking something out wrong, I mean, especially, and I'm saying that mostly about people new to Torah. I mean, there are some people that have, you know, I have found that have, you know, read through the whole Bible multiple times and they're still doing things that are clearly against Yahweh. For people that are new to Torah, I've really learned to just love them where they're at and kind of just be myself and let them look at my walk instead of my words. Yes. Not so much look at my words, like not that my words are bad, but I want them to see that deposit that I was saying to you earlier. That is the big thing, you know, things that they can see.
I have to say I have learned that myself from Christy, and in a very humbling way. In fact, it startled me because I thought that I was doing much better at it than I was.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I kind of resented her for it there for the first couple of months, and then
yeah, I think I did too.
I grew to appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think the group is so diverse, and the diverseness is great. And I'm amazed though too at how many people are reading through the Bible the first time right now, and they are like fully in Torah. I mean, their whole life is just, they're walking it out already, you know, like.
Yes. It's amazing what reading the Word will do for a person.
That's right.
It literally transforms your mind.
Yeah.
And isn't that what Paul said?
Yep.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You know, as long as it glorifies the Father and it promotes your future podcasts and people will listen more and gain and glean things from it, that's what matters. That all glorifies the Father. Every time you do a podcast and people are hearing about, you know, that the whole Bible is still applicable to our lives and that the Torah, how important it is, that you're just glorifying God to do this, you know, and that's what we're here to do, all of us, right? We're just here to support each other and lean on each other and glorify God.
Praise Him. Oh, hallelujah.
Amen.
Well, thank you guys so very much. And please know that I pray for you every time your name crosses my mind. I pray for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Walk Like a Hebrew. If you enjoyed this program, please leave a review on our Facebook page or your podcast app. You can find links to the resources mentioned in this episode in the show notes by visiting the link tree in our Instagram bio and Facebook, or by visiting sheholdsforth.com. There are many ways to support Walk Like a Hebrew, including donating at sheholdsforth.com, making Amazon affiliate link purchases from the show notes, or by getting yourself some sweet Walk Like a Hebrew merchandise on eBay or Etsy. Please like and share our Facebook page. Subscribe to Walk Like a Hebrew on your favorite podcast app or YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and leave reviews. All these things will help get the word out about Walk Like a Hebrew. And as always, many, many thanks to Jack Lane for the music. May Yehovah bless you. We'll catch you next time.